Welcome to Talk Tickers. We know you're busy, so we cut straight to the chase on key earnings calls.
That's right.
Today, we're diving into SES AI. Their first quarter 2025 call just wrapped.
And there's quite a bit to unpack.
Absolutely. The big headlines, record revenue, for one, and they've unveiled this potentially game-changing software and service platform.
Definitely the key takeaways. So starting with the results, SES AI reported record revenue, $5.8 million for Q1 2025.
$5.8 million, okay.
And importantly, they reaffirmed their full year guidance. They're still aiming for $15 million to $25 million for 2025.
So that Q1 number puts them on a decent track, potentially.
It seems so. And the gross margin was really strong too, 79% in the first quarter.
79%, that's pretty high.
It is. And financially, they look solid. They finished the quarter with $240 million in cash.
And no debt, I saw.
Correct, zero debt. Plus, they expect to end 2025 still holding over $200 million in liquidity.
Okay, a strong financial base then. Let's dig into that record revenue, the $5.8 million. Where exactly did that come from? Sounds like automotive played a big part.
It did, yeah. The main driver was contracts with two automotive OEMs, car manufacturers.
Right.
And these deals are focused on developing AI-enhanced batteries, both lithium metal and lithium-ion types for EVs.
So the AI angle is key here.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And that work seems to be the foundation for their next big move.
Which brings us to this molecular universe platform. Sounds ambitious. What's the core idea? Is it just for those two OEMs?
No, that's the interesting part. They're taking the AI capabilities they developed, working with those car companies, and turning it into a broader software and service platform. It's called Molecular Universe, launching very soon, actually, April 29th.
Okay, so what does it do? Material discovery.
Exactly. Battery materials discovery and development. The goal seems to be mass producing these discovery services, moving beyond just bespoke projects for one or two clients.
Yeah. So they're opening up their AI tools to potentially anyone in the battery world, not just EV makers.
Precisely. That seems to be the plan. They're talking OEMs, yes, but also battery makers themselves, electric companies, consumer electronics.
Yeah.
Basically anyone needing better batteries.
And across different chemistries too, not just their own lithium metal focus.
Yes, they emphasize that. All battery chemistries, potentially all markets. They're pitching it as a full end-to-end service.
End-to-end meaning?
From discovering the material, the initial science bit, all the way through to helping figure out manufacturing. Sample cells, B samples, C samples, right up to SOP, standard operating procedure at scale.
That's comprehensive. Is there any traction yet, or is it just an announcement for now?
No, they mentioned even before the official launch, they've got about a dozen companies already using it in early access.
A dozen? Who?
A mix, apparently. OEMs, battery companies, electronics firms. So, yeah, that suggests there's some real interest out there already.
Interesting. No, they also mentioned other applications, right? Something about robotics and drones. Seems a bit different from cars.
Yes,
Yeah.
Good point. They highlighted significant interest in their AI-enhanced 2170 cylindrical cell. It's a pretty standard battery size.
Right. You see those everywhere.
Exactly. And the interest is specifically for humanoid robotics and drones. So, yeah, showing some versatility.
And their factory in Korea plays into this.
It does. Their facility in Chengdu, South Korea, it makes these P-cells for drones, or UAM, urban air mobility concepts.
Ah, okay.
And they noted its strategic value, especially with current geopolitical stuff and tariff tensions. Being in South Korea could be an advantage.
Makes sense. And these drone cells use materials found by
Molecular Universe, yes. So it ties back. They're already using materials discovered via their own AI platform in these specific cells.
Okay, got it. So let's circle back to the Molecular Universe launch itself, April 29th. What else do we know? Features, pricing, how will they actually make money from this?
They're planning a live demo on the 29th to show it off and explain the pricing. It sounds like a tiered structure, 5 tiers in total.
5 tiers, okay.
And it's a mix. Some tiers are pure software subscriptions, per user, per month, with different levels of access to the platform's features.
Standard sauce model.
Pretty much. But then other tiers are software plus services.
Ah, okay. What kind of services are we talking about beyond just using the software?
Quite a few, actually. Things like deploying the platform on premise for big companies who want that.
Right, data security.
Exactly. Also training the AI model with the customer's own proprietary data, so tailoring it.
Interesting.
And then more hands-on stuff. actually synthesizing molecules the AI finds, formulating electrolytes, doing battery testing, like a full joint development agreement, a JDA.
Wow, okay. That's quite involved.
And even IP protection. They mentioned this concept of hidden galaxies within the platform.
Hidden galaxies? What's that?
It sounds like for a fee, a company can keep its discoveries confidential within the system, maybe even involving royalty payments back to SES AI if the discovery hits the market, like a secure R&D space within the platform.
So this really signals a major shift, doesn't it? From primarily making batteries or planning to make batteries at scale to becoming more of a tech and service provider for battery R&D.
I think that's exactly right. They explicitly said they're moving away from, capital-heavy manufacturing plants. The focus now is this scalable software and service business.
And their spending reflects that.
Apparently so. They're directing operating costs towards building up the commercial team, really pushing to drive revenue from this platform between now and, say, 2027.
Okay, so back to the revenue guidance, the $15 to $25 million for this year. Did they give any hints about how that might land quarter by quarter, or is it too early?
They didn't give a specific quarterly cadence, no, but the message was confidence in hitting the full year number. They've got a pipeline, they say. And they're really framing 2025 as like a foundational year, setting things up for what they hope is significant growth starting in 2026.
And measuring success for Molecular Universe, what should we or investors be looking for?
Well, the most obvious metric is just revenue, right? How much money does the platform actually bring in through subscriptions and services?
Makes sense. Anything else?
They also talked about its impact on the industry itself.
Yeah.
Like, is it actually helping companies speed up their R&D? If it genuinely accelerates innovation across the board, that's another key success indicator.
Okay. And what about those margins? 79% in Q1 was impressive, but is that sustainable with this new model?
Good question. They acknowledge future margins will depend on the mix. Software and services, they expect, could have margins over 80%.
Very high.
But any product sales, like those P cells maybe, would be lower margin, maybe 20, 30%. So the overall blend matters.
But they still expect it to be pretty good overall.
Yeah, they guided for an expected overall mix staying above 60%, which is still quite healthy.
Okay. One last financial point. The share buyback authorization. Why now? What's the thinking there?
They positioned it as just an efficient way to allocate capital, a tool they have available.
But not necessarily using it immediately.
Not necessarily. And they stress it wouldn't hurt their liquidity runway. They feel they can consider it because of the revenue guidance being reaffirmed, the strong balance sheet, those high margins, and keeping costs under control.
Right. So zooming out, what's the bigger picture here for investors or just anyone watching the battery space? What does this shift by SES AI mean?
Well, it could be quite significant, couldn't it? This move to a software and service model for something as fundamental as material discovery. It might change how battery R&D gets done.
Disrupting the traditional lab-based approach.
Potentially, yeah. It could impact strategies for established players and startups alike in batteries and EVs. And that early interest, those dozen companies testing Molecular Universe, that suggests there's real market appetite for AI-driven tools like this.
And the geopolitical angle, the Korea facility.
That's another key context point. It highlights how much things like supply chains and manufacturing location matter right now, with global tensions and trade issues.
Definitely. And we should still keep an eye on their actual battery tech claims too, right? The high silicon cells, the electrolyte performance.
Absolutely. Those performance claims, especially around solving issues like gassing in high energy cells, are still really important for the overall battery technology landscape. That hasn't gone away.
Okay. Time for our This Is Not Financial Advice segment. Purely hypothetical, outrageous, but plausible trade ideas based on today's discussion. What have you got for us?
All right, idea number one. Given this major pivot to software and services, the potential for recurring revenue from Molecular Universe, you could consider a long position in SES AI.
Okay.
The thesis is that the market might initially underrate this shift, still seeing them mainly as a battery maker. If Molecular Universe takes off and generates high margin revenue,
the market might re-rate them as more of a tech stock.
Exactly, higher multiples. But it's a bet on the platform's success, so you'd want a tight stop loss. The April 29th launch demo is obviously a key catalyst to watch there.
Outrageous but plausible, indeed.
Got a second one?
Idea 2 plays on that strategic value of the South Korean facility we talked about.
The geopolitical angle.
Right. So maybe a pairs trade, go long SES AI, but at the same time, short a competitor that's heavily reliant on manufacturing in regions facing, let's say, higher tariff risks or geopolitical uncertainty.
Playing the geographical advantage.
Essentially, yeah. Betting that SES AI might gain a competitive edge in certain markets simply due to where they can make things, especially those drone and UAM cells. Again, purely hypothetical.
Understood.
Yeah.
Outrageous, plausible, and definitely not financial advice. Okay, that wraps up our deep dive on SES AI's latest earnings call.
We covered the record Q1 revenue, dug into the new Molecular Universe platform,
And touched on the financials, the strategy shift, and those trade ideas. So what do you think about this move towards software in battery innovation? Will Molecular Universe really be the game changer they hope?
Lots to think about. Let us know what stood out to you or any questions you still have.
This has been Talk Tickers, giving you the insights you need.
Join us next time for another deep dive into the world of earnings.